Welcome back to ManaTutor MTG Draft. We are here with our second episode of the entire channel. I'm here again with my friend Matt, who we saw last time.
Hello.
And as always, I'm Jeremy. We will go over the cards for black this round. If you haven't seen our previous episode, go over to our last episode where we had the lands, the artifacts, went over all that, and we went over our grading scale there as well. So check that out if you're not familiar with the standard A through F grading scale. But with that, we're going to go into black cards today, commons and uncommons. Up first, we have Haunt of the Dead Marshes. For 1 black mana, you get a 1/1 Nightmare Elf creature. When Haunt of the Dead Marshes enters the battlefield, scry 1. Pay 2 and a black, return Haunt of the Dead Marshes from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Activate only if you control a legendary creature. So, I kind of like one of these cards in my sacrifice deck because of the recurring theme behind it.
Mhm.
And it tacks on a nice ability that we don't usually see for a card like this, the Scry one, which also has synergies, not so much in this color. That's more of a blue-green synergy, so we'll see how much that really comes up with the synergy effect, but it still is a nice tack on. That said, in limited, paying 1 mana to get a 1/1 is a little bit low value for being worth a card, right? So with that, I will say I like it in my sacrifice decks, which sacrifice is a theme. It's a little less supported than we've had in the last several sets, so just want to note that. But I gave this a D plus. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I disagree on this one a little
Okay.
bit. I actually rated this a little bit higher, not crazy higher, but I rated it a C plus. And the reasons I'll say for it is, I mean, there are not a lot of one drops in this set. Although in black there are actually more than other colors. But I like the scry, as you said. It's good. If this is a turn one drop, it could help you fix your mana base a little bit. If you're scry and you're like, no, I don't need a land, or yes, I very much need a land. It can help you, or if you get something else and you're hoping for a land, you can kind of fix a little bit. I also like the return ability from graveyard to battlefield tapped. Right, it's only if you control a legendary creature, but with the ring bearer mechanic and everything else, you're going to control a ring bearer. And the other reason I just like it is because this card could be a blocker for a ring bearer, right? And he could be a recurring blocker for a ring bearer. And so I can see some good utility of this later game, turn 6, turn 7, right? Somebody else has ring bearer, their ring temps you mechanic up to full. And, every time you block a ring bearer, the creature gets sacrificed. Okay, well, I'm going to bring him back. Okay, well, I'm going to bring him back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this might have some utility. I'm not 100% sure of it, but I would at the very least, I think, start it off at a C plus.
Yeah, that's fair. I especially like the point of the 1 mana drop that scries, like fixing your opening hand. Like I hate mulliganing. You're down
Yeah,
a card to start. Like if you get
100%.
this in
Yeah.
your hand, you are much less likely to have to mulligan because you can scry for whatever you need that you don't have, type of thing. So that's going for it. I'm gonna stick at my D plus for now, but I will say this is like on the higher end of it that I've ever seen these type of cards. If there was more sacrifice synergy, I would come up to like a C minus, maybe even a C. But I'll stick a D plus. But yeah, we'll see at the end of the set.
Yeah, we'll see how much gets played.
Yep. All right.
So next up, we have Lash of the Balrog. Costs 1 black, sorcery. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature or pay 4 colorless, and it's destroy target creature. So overall, I think this is decent low cost removal. For one, I don't really love that it's sorcery speed, obviously. It is a sacrifice outlet, which can come in handy. Obviously, you never want to pay 5 for this. So I think that the key would be to be able to sacrifice. That said, there's a fair amount in black and in red and other colors you might play of token generation, like with the amass tokens and things like that. And I love removal in general, so I'm gonna go with a C.
Okay. I agree with everything you said. The flexibility is nice that, yes, you'll typically want to be getting away with 1 mana, sacrifice a creature to do the thing efficiently, especially with the mass, for instance, where you can just maybe get another creature right on board with your next mass. But it's nice that you can pay the 5 when you have that and not have to sacrifice a creature. That said, I'm slightly lower than you. C minus on this one for me.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that's fairly close. I mean,
Yep.
I think it's decent removal in a color that has a lot of removal. So.
Yep. Up next, we have Sam's Desperate Rescue. For 1 black mana, you get return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. The ring tempts you. So we're probably gonna. I get a feeling we're probably gonna disagree on this one a little too.
Maybe. I don't know.
We'll see though. So I don't love these 1 mana return something from the graveyard to your hand effects. They are, in my mind, typically filler. The ring tempts you pretty cheaply here, though.
Yep.
So I will say I did give this a D plus. I think that might be too low. I think the ring tempts you bumps this up. I'm gonna start with a C minus. It really all depends on how much that ring tempts you mechanic how much you care about that for your deck, and how big of a thing it's going to be. I do think that second ring temp to get the loot. I think that's where the money's at in the set. I think it'd be very hard unless you have the ring temp on a stick to get all the way up to 4 ring temps. I'll change my grade from D plus to C minus, but let's see where you're at.
No, we're not that far apart. I said it's a C.
Okay.
And maybe I'm overrating it a little bit, but I like that 1 mana, ring tempts you. I mean, to be honest, like depending on my deck, I might just play it for that. I might not even play it. Like if it's in my opening hand and I've got my creature that I want to be my ring bearer, that's a 2 or a 3 drop, right? Like I might just play it to get that ring tempts you immediately, and then put that creature out. Have to play a second ring tempts you, and oh look, I've got my ring bearer and I've got the loot effect out, right? But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not, I think, an amazing card by any means, but I'm going to start off at a C, and we'll see how the set takes it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So next up, the last of the 1-cost black cards we have Shelob's Ambush. It is 1 black. It is an instant. Target creature gets +1/+2 and gains Death Touch until end of turn, and create a food token as well. So I really like this card. I mean, it's a nice trick, especially with the Death Touch, and especially because it's +1/+2. Right, so it gives a little bit extra survivability. Obviously instant speed. The food token's kind of just a bonus on my end. I think it would still be good without it. It's obviously better with it. So I went with a C+ on this.
Okay, I'm not too far apart. I'm at a C minus. This does obliterate double block, so the ceiling on this one's really high. These kinds of tricks, though, tend to underperform in limited, but they're much better when they're cheap, and this one is cheap. You do get quite a bit for 1 mana here. Also getting a food, like it's definitely something. It's definitely a playable in my mind. Like I don't think this will go like in the filler range. But it does have a low floor as well. Sometimes you don't get the double block effect, and this is just a destroy a creature that was blocked or that you blocked. Especially if your creature also dies, it does have a nice +2 as the toughness, so hopefully you can keep your thing alive. But I'd rather just be playing straight up removal, so that I don't have to deal with setting up a block or being blocked before I do my removal of a creature type thing. So I think it's a C minus, and I think you're at C plus, right?
Yep. Yeah. I just happen to love tricks like this, right? So again, I may be overrating it, but I love these kind of tricks. So
I like 1 mana tricks a lot too. So I just want to mention I like them in aggro decks when they pump up more power. So I actually like
a
giant growth a good amount.
Yeah. Or like even a +2/+1 you'd like, because that's more offensive. No, totally.
Up next we have Easterling Vanguard. For 1 black, you get a 2/1 human warrior creature. When guard dies, amass orcs 1. I like this card quite a bit. In some sense, it's a 2-for-1. 2 1s for 2. I tend to like better, I think, than the overall crowd. I like my early plays, my 2 mana drops, and when they have 2 power, like we mentioned, I like the power. I will say it's not amazing as a 2-1, but the one toughness is backed up by the fact that it has amass orcs 1 when this dies. So I like it a lot. I'm at a C+.
Yeah, I'm at a C+ as well on this, and I agree with everything you said. And I even look at it like, we actually just discussed, for example, the card Lash of the Balrog, right? This is great with Lash of the Balrog, right? You get him out there, you use him, you attack once or something like that, and then you sacrifice him to kill your opponent's creature that just came out on turn 3 or something. And oh look, yeah, you get something back for it, right? You get your 1/1 amass. So yeah, no, I think it's great. I don't think it draws me into black just if I see this in there, but it's just below that. I think it's a very good card. Next up, we have Mordor Muster. It's 1 colorless, 1 black, sorcery speed. You draw a card and you lose one life and amass orcs 1. So I like this. This is a good amass, I think, overall. And drawing a card for 2 mana and 1 life, decent. I mean, it's certainly not the best, but I think it's good. Just to put in as filler in an amass deck, I think it's pretty good. So I came with a C on this.
Yeah, I have the same grade for all the same reasons. I like having it's essentially a 1/1 or a +1/+1, but these type of cards are decent both early and late in the game, which is sometimes something that these low mana cost cards suffer from. Like when you draw them late, they basically do nothing. Well, anything that replaces itself is not really do nothing. You could find another resource for your late game as well with it. So I like it as C as well. Up next, we have Morgul Knife Wound. For 1 black, you get an enchantment aura. It's an enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets -3/-0 and has, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile this creature unless you pay 2 life. This definitely makes it expensive to keep your opponent's creature around, right? Like they're gonna want to sacrifice this, get it out of the way. One thing is though that they don't have to. And they could chump block with the creature.
Sure.
So this is efficient removal. It's a decent card, but that they could just chump block with it next turn type of thing, that pulls me down to a D+ on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think this is another one where we have a little bit of a difference. I think. And I'm looking at it as this is the card you play on someone to neuter their ring bearer. You basically let's say the ring bearer is a 1/1 or a 1/3 or a 1/2. You're going to pick something generally with low power as a ring bearer because it can only be blocked by power itself or less. So chances are most people are not going to pick a ring bearer with more than 3 power. And so that effectively neuters the ring bearer. It prevents it from dealing damage to you. It prevents some of the abilities from triggering, although not all, right? You could still loot a card. So from my perspective, that's the utility in this. And so I went with a C+. That might be a little high. It might be more like a C. But I do think with the prevalence of, everyone's going to have a ring bearer most games, unless you're playing like 0 ring tempts you cards. I look at it from that perspective as it provides that little bit of extra utility. And yeah, sure, they could sacrifice their ring bearer or, keep it around and pay 2 life every turn. But that 2 life will add up over time. So eventually they're going to sacrifice it. And in the meantime, it's not dealing damage to you. So you're not potentially losing the 3 life from that final ring tempts you ability. So yeah, I would. Yeah, I might come down to a C on it eventually, but I'm at a C+ to start.
Okay.
So next up, we have the net card Nasty End. It costs 1 colorless and 1 black, instant speed. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. Draw 2 cards. If the sacrificed creature was legendary, draw 3 cards instead. So this is a pretty standard card that we've seen reprinted in several different formats. I'm not going to remember all the names of all the versions of it, but there's one that creates a treasure token. There's one that creates, I think it creates some kind of other token. I forget off the top of my head. But this is a pretty common type of card. Sack a creature, draw 2 cards, might have an additional effect associated with it. And overall, I think it's good. You know, I like it. It's good it's good to essentially, it's a good trade to draw cards, right? I think anything that replaces itself +1 at a 2 cost is generally pretty good. Sacking a creature in black is not usually as bad as other colors because you have ways to replace it, or you have a mass in this set. So I went with a C+.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't mind filling a deck in with some card draw. Like I do like to have a few card draw spells within my deck. Make sure you keep on churning through your cards. This kind of effect has not performed great, but not horribly in Limited in the past. It is interesting with the legendary one. You can draw 3. I wonder how much that bumps this up. These are especially good if you can respond to somebody's removal, right? So if somebody's playing a removal spell against a legendary creature, you can play this and draw 3 cards. You just blanked their removal and drew 3 cards. So that's like a great high ceiling. Or
one quick thing. Sorry to interrupt, but if you're blocking someone's Ring Bearer and you're going to have to sacrifice the creature at end of combat, boom. Okay, I'm going to draw 2, potentially 3, right? So that's kind of the other thing I thought about with it. But go on. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's good. So I did put this as a D+ because it's more. That's kind of the grade that this typically gets. But as I see all the different legendary creatures and all that, that might come up often enough to bump this up more. I think it does. I think I'm going to change my grade to a C-. I think this is a low-end playable. Now, it really depends on how much do you need card draw. Like, just because I'm grading this low doesn't mean, like, I sometimes will play that C- even above like a C or something because I need the card draw. So, don't take the low grade with a grain of salt. It's I just think there's better card draw out there, but I will play this. So yeah, C-. Up next we have Orcish Medicine. It's 1 and a black for an instant. Target creature gains your choice of lifelink or indestructible until end of turn. Amass 1. This ceiling can be quite high if you can engineer a double kill. And the floor is okay if you can't. You also have like the lifelink out, like that's going to be relevant. It's nice to attach a creature, this kind of thing. I think you get enough out of this to make it a playable. I still think this is on the low side of playable, so I gave it a C-.
Yeah, I wasn't much higher than you on this. I gave it a C. I mean, for all the same reasons you said. I like the bonus of a mass on it, though. I think that's it's basically also get a 1/1 or pump your amass army, right? So I can imagine a situation where you play this on your 4/4 army, and all of a sudden it now has lifelink or indestructible, and it's now a 5/5. Right, in that same turn, right? So it's also it could also be give it +1/+1 or counter +1/+1. So I see a lot of potential utility in this. I think it's also great for blocking. If your opponent swings all out because they think they can kill you, right? And oh no, all of a sudden I'm going to create a 1/1 blocker and make my other creature indestructible. And like you said, the ceiling can be very high for this. And so yeah, I went a little bit higher on it, but not much.
Yeah, sounds good. I think people might also like this is in a way this is a trick too, right? Like this if you were to even like let's say on offense you were to attack with your orcs, they block one and you attack with something else, you could play this on your other creature and have your orcs +1/+1 for the kill. So that's the double kill situation that I was mentioning. But some people might not I just wanted to call that out because it's not
No.
immediately
I
apparent.
mean, that's very valid, and it's a good situation. So yeah. Anyways, yeah. I suspect this card will get played a fair amount.
Yeah.
So next up, we have Claim the Precious. This is our first 3-cost card. It costs 1 colorless and 2 black. Sorcery. Destroy target creature and the ring tempts you. So I don't love, obviously, that it's sorcery speed. Clearly would be better if it's instant, but it's good. It's good removal, and it's removal that causes the ring to tempt you. So other than that, I put this at a C+. I think it's really good removal overall.
I think we have our first, at least black grade, where I gave it higher than you.
Okay.
Yeah, but not much. B minus. I got there. Yeah, this draws me into black. Yes, the double black hurts, but murder is typically a good card in limited. Now, murder is an instant. This one's a sorcery, but this comes with ring tempts you. I think that's more than a fair trade-off. Although destruction of creatures is quite useful to engineer in combat to do some stuff when you have it as instant, so it definitely hurts that to sorcery.
Yeah.
But I'll take it as a B minus with a ring tempts you effect on it.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. Totally.
All right. Up next, we have Dunland Creebane. For 2 and a black, you get a 1/1 bird horror creature with flying. When Dunland Creebane enters the battlefield, amass orcs 2. All right, that's a good rate. It's sort of like people are comparing it to Reverse Preening Champion. There was a card in the last set, 2/2 flyer that came out that gave you a 1/1. Well, this is a 1/1 flyer that gives you a 2/2, or +2/+2. But that's a good rate for 3 mana. You get your 3 power, 3 toughness. Some of that gets flying, and you get 2 creatures out of it, which is worth more than 1. So yeah, that's a good rate. It's not as good as Preening Champion in my mind. I would much rather have a 2/2 flyer. Plus, there's no Convoke in this set, which helps Preening Champion. But I think this is good. It doesn't pull me into black, but I have this as a C+.
Agree with everything you said. My notes on this literally say 3 for 1/1 flyer and 2/2 army equals good. So, yeah. I have a C+ as well. So up next we have Mordor Trebuchet. This is 2 colorless, 1 black for an artifact creature wall. So it has defender, and whenever you attack with 1 or more goblins or orcs, create a 2/1 colorless construct artifact creature token with flying named Ballistic Boulder. That's tapped and attacking. Sacrifice that token at end of combat. And it's a 1/4. So it's not a totally useless wall because it can block. I really, really like this card a lot. And there's a couple of reasons for it. I like that it can, a lot of your creatures in black, especially if you go black-red, are going to be orcs or goblins. Your army is typically going to be an orcish army. So the odds that you get to use the advanced ability on this is very good, to get your 2/1 flying boulder that can deal damage. It's good as a ring bearer blocker because it has that 1 toughness. So you're going to be able to block pretty much any ring bearer with it. Obviously it's not good on the offense as a wall. The fact that it costs 3 is a little high, and so I went with an overall grade of a C.
Okay. I'm a bit lower on this one, probably just because my experience with these type of cards that are like 3 mana 1/4s that produce a temporary flyer or something. I just never have had good experience with that. It's decent stats ultimately, like the 1/4 is low, yes, but if you get the 2/1 flyer each turn type of thing, that's pretty good. My problem with it is while you will have orcs and goblins in a lot of your black decks, you have to be attacking with them to get it, and I just wonder how often that's going to trigger. So with all that setup, I give this a D, but I admit, I in the right deck where you want to be attacking with orcs and goblins, this might go higher than that, but I'll be taking it around a D to start.
Sure, and that's totally fair. And, I would definitely say that this is synergistic, obviously, with orcs, but really with an aggro deck. Yeah. Like you're going to want to be playing an aggro deck if you're going to put this in because, like you said, you're going to have to be attacking with that orc every turn. odds are it could be an army, and it could be a 4/4 or 5/5 army, which is scary enough on its own. But the bonus 2 damage could add up. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I could be way too high on that, but I think I get a sense I'd play this. So
Yeah,
maybe that's a
let
bad,
me know how it goes.
bad thing.
I'll let you test it out first, and maybe it'll cue me into a really good use for it, and I'll start drafting it.
Sure. Yeah.
I think I'm up next here. Okay, the Black
Yep.
Breath. 2 and a black for a sorcery. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn. The ring tempts you. My issue with this card, doing some stats on it, was that this only hits 16% of creatures. Now, that said, amass tokens, when they start off, will often be 1/1s as well, so it will hit more creatures than that. But I do think this is a fairly low hit rate, such that I don't really want to play it. I have it as a D. I see this more maybe as like a sideboard. I'd give it maybe a higher sideboard grade, perhaps. This will hit like certain decks hard. Like humans have a lot of 1/1s.
Yeah.
So if you're against that, you'll probably want this. But against a random opponent, I'm treating this like a D.
No, 100% gave it the exact same grade. There's so much good removal in black in this set, and in my mind, this is not as good. It would, in my mind, be. I would probably raise it almost up to a C- if it was instant, because then you have the option to play it as a trick to prevent your creatures from dying in an attack or a block situation,
Right.
or just prevent a lot of damage to you if they're attacking with a bunch of 2/2s or something. And I could see a higher grade in that instance, but as it is, no, I agree with you 100%. I think it's a D with potential for sideboard activity against like you said, a human deck or something like that. Next up, we have Uruk-hai Berserker, and it is 2 colorless and 1 black creature, Orc Berserker. He's a 3/2, and when he enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. So overall, I think this card is okay. 3 for a 3/2 is okay. The ring tempts you is a nice little add-on to that. But I think overall, I'd be looking for a little bit more value out of a 3 cost here. So I gave it a D+.
Okay, I'm a little bit higher on this one. Again, I like my creatures that have power, and so 3 for 4, or sorry, 3 for 3 is decent there. It is understated, like the 2 toughness. Like I'd like to get a 3/3 for 3, but I think the ring tempts you is enough to make up for that. So I didn't go extremely strong on it, but C is what I have. So I just playable.
Yeah. I mean, I even with a D+, I was borderline on this one, but I could certainly see it as playable, and by no means would I ignore it in a pack, especially if I didn't have a lot of ring tempts and I knew I would want them for a couple of creatures that I picked up that I would want to make ring bearers. So yeah, I think that it could go a couple different ways here.
Up next, we have Mirkwood Bats. For 3 and a black, you get a 2/3 bat creature with flying. Whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. This is an interesting one. Yeah, so 2/3 flyer for 4, that's not that great. But that ability on there, if you sacrifice a lot of tokens, this could be decent in some of those decks. If you have some way to multiple creatures a turn be sacrificing, I gave this a synergy C. If you're in some kind of sacrifice, going to do this enough, I think you might be able to deal a decent amount of damage through this card.
Sure. Yeah. No. And that's exactly the way I think of it too. I gave it a synergy B- actually, but the thing about synergy, right, is if it's synergy, you probably are already in the color. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily applicable. It might be more like a C+. But I think this is very good in any sort of food or amass deck. Black has a lot of amass, one of the cards we just talked about, Mordor Trebuchet. This is an amazing synergy with Mordor Trebuchet.
Yep.
Because
2 damage every turn just with that.
That's 2 extra damage every turn plus the 2/2. And they're both common. Odds are you could get a couple of both of these.
Yeah.
And so if you can do that, to me that's a great combo actually.
Right. The only thing that's keeping me from like really wanting to go higher on this, like you're almost talking me up. You might actually still succeed. It's the 4 mana on it though.
It's expensive.
I judge my cards much harder 4 mana and up than I do 3 and lower. So it suffers a little bit from that, but in the right deck, this is powerful.
Sure. Yeah. And we'll see. And we'll see after the first few weeks of play with this, where it lands. But I could see it. Like I could certainly see an archetype that is like a mass with Mordor Trebuchet and this, and people just like go ham with it. It would, to me, that would be an incredibly aggro deck. But yeah, like you said, this is coming out probably turn 4 at the earliest, unless you have some sort of ramp, which a lot of the ramp costs 3 actually. So the odds that you're going to get that out any sooner is really not that good. But yeah, definitely.
I'll give this. I'm still going to stick Synergy C, but I'll say this: you're giving me a reason to want to play the Trebuchet.
I actually went back and revised the Trebuchet up after reading
this.
So that's I was like, this could come in handy at points, right?
Yep.
All right. So next up we have Snarling Warg. This is a 3 colorless, 1 black for a 3/4 creature wolf. It has menace. And as long as you control a goblin or orc, Snarling Warg gets +1/+0. Overall, I would say that I don't love this card. I mean, it's not terrible. And oftentimes you will have that goblin or that orc, if only from an amass army or something like that. But at that point, it's just a 4/4 for 4. And, kind of what you were saying on the last card, like for that cost, I would expect there to be something a little bit extra on it, either a 5/5 for 4 or a 4/4 with, I mean, it has menace, right? So it does have that ability. But like, I don't know. I'm not in love with it. Let's put it that way. So I gave it a D+.
Ditto. That's all I got. Exactly.
Awesome.
I'll move on.
Yep.
The next one is the Torment of Gollum. 3 and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Amass Orcs 2. So this, yes, it's 4 mana, but this can take your opponent's biggest threat and still add board presence on top of that. Late in this game, this might not snatch something, and the floor is not great, but it's not abysmal. So I think this is okay. I think this is playable. I have it as a C.
Yeah, I think this is a case where we'll have a significant difference. For me, I rated it a D- actually, just above F. For me, it's too expensive. Just take removal instead. From my perspective, there's so much good black removal that I would almost always take removal over this. Now, that's not to say I would never take this card. And like you said, it's good for non-creatures, obviously. It's good for sorceries. It's good for instants. But, I would almost always just take anything that says destroy target creature over this.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that, right? So, so for me, I'll stick with a D-.
Yeah, you're talking me down. I'm not quite sure how far down yet, but yeah, I agree. Like I'll take a lot of things over this. I don't know that it deserves a C. Put me as C-, but I'm now even kind of like C-, D+ range. I think you're right that for 4 mana you're gonna want more out of your card. But yeah, put me as C-.
Okay. Yeah.
Up next, we have Cirith Ungol Patrol. For 4 and a black, you get a 4/5 orc soldier creature. Pay 1 colorless and tap it and sacrifice another creature. Draw a card, then create a food token. This is a pretty cheap sack outlet. It's a little bit understated as a 4/5 for 5, but it's not horrible. But I do like being able to sacrifice a creature ultimately just pay 1 mana for it and draw a card and create a food. That's a pretty powerful effect, especially in any kind of like attrition game where you're trying to outvalue your opponent over time. So while I do like to ask a lot of my 5 mana cards, I like this one decently. I also rated this one a C.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree with you. I rated a little bit higher at a C plus, but solely because again, I'm thinking, hey, late game, Ring Bearer might have a lot of ability that might get to that sacrifice ability, right? So this is great when you know chump block the Ring Bearer with your 1/1 token or something. Hey, look, I'll pay a mana and sacrifice that chump blocker, and oh, by the way, I'll draw a card and create a food token,
Yep.
right? So I think you can late. Obviously, as a 5 coster, it's a later game card, but later game, I could definitely see this coming in handy against situations where the Ring Bearer is bearing down on you and threatening to take 3 life from you every time, and the food token helps with that as well. So it basically negates it because you can do it every turn, right? So yeah, so I'm going to stick, I think, with a C plus, but it may be too expensive. I don't know. We'll see.
Yep.
So let's see here. Next up, oh great! I love that I'm getting to do the first cycle. So we have Troll of Khazad-dûm, the last of the commons in black. It costs 5 and colorless and 1 black. It is a creature troll. It is a 6/5. Troll of Khazad-dûm can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures, and it has Swamp Cycling 1. We haven't talked obviously about any of the other land cyclers, right? I happen to think that this might be quite possibly the best of the cyclers, only because it is in black. There's graveyard recursion in black, and it has what I would term mega menace. Having to be blocked by 3 or more. So this is
I love that.
I'm
going to use that. Mega Menace.
This is actually not a bad Ring Bearer, right? Like, you think about it, right? You give your Ring Bearer, like, if you name this and it can't be blocked except by 3 or more, like, people are not they're gonna have to sacrifice 3 creatures if they block with it, potentially. Yeah. So I like this a lot. It doesn't draw me into black, and obviously it is expensive. But I would give it a C plus overall.
Okay. I'm pretty close. I like these cards a lot. Talk about how this has a high ceiling, high floor, because the problem with most of the expensive creatures is they stick around in your hand until you can play them, and that's not the case for these because it has Swamp Cycling 1, and that's a really cheap cost. You can even start talking about replacing lands with this. So I like that the high ceiling, high floors is in place, and I'm giving this a B minus. I do think this is enough to pull me into the color. Yeah, I like these cards quite a bit with that kind of flexibility. I think you can even think about splashing the off color with some of this swamp cycling as well, because it helps add kind of another card that you can play on the color and find the land that you need type of thing. So depending what you need flexibly with these cards. So that's why it kind of pulls me in regardless, because I don't even necessarily need to play that color as a standard color, type of thing.
Sure.
So it's an earlier pick because of its flexibility, I think.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair.
All right, now that we're done with the commons in black, we're going to move on to the uncommons, go through mana value order like we have. First up, we have Golem's Bite for 1 black mana. You get an instant with target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Pay 3 and a black, exile Golem's Bite from your graveyard. The ring tempts you, activate only as a sorcery. I like this card a lot. A 1 mana, effectively shock, in some ways even better, that, it can -2/-2 something in combat as an instant, and you get the backup value of the ring tempts you later as well. I just gave this card a B. What do you think?
Okay. I gave it a little bit lower because I'm not sure if I see this in an early pack that it draws me into black to commit hard to black. Although, again, as we've talked about before, I don't need a lot to draw me into black. I'm naturally tempted to go into black because it's a pretty good color in a lot of sets. So I gave this a C plus. Because it is very borderline for me. I could see it being a B minus or even a B. But I'm not sure it on its own gets me there. But it is a very good card, and I would almost always take this if I'm already committed to black. Like I would actually rate this pretty high in the list of things that I will take because it is good, cheap removal.
Yeah, I didn't run the stats on this card, or if I did, I didn't record what the stats are of how many creatures that it hits. But typically, this kind of effect will hit over half the creatures in the set for just 1 mana. So maybe want to run that to double check, but tends to be pretty good. I think it'll draw me
somewhere
in
the 40 to 50% range. So
yeah.
I think it's good. Yeah, it's definitely good removal. So next up, we have Golem, Patient Plotter. It costs 1 colorless and 1 black. Legendary creature, Halfling Horror. It's a 3/1. When it leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you, and you can pay 1 black and sacrifice a creature. Return Golem from your graveyard to your hand. Activate only as a sorcery. I like this card. I think it's pretty decent. I like that it recurs, right? For just 1 black mana, you can bring him back to your hand. Obviously at sorcery speed, but it's really good. And every time it leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you. I don't know that he draws me into black, but I have it at a C plus.
Yeah, I'm on that borderline. So I had it as a B minus, but it's right on that line somewhere there. 3/1 for 2. Again, I like my power. I don't like that a 1/1 could block it and kill it. But hey, if they do, the ring tempts you. So there's some upside there.
And you bring him back.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to come back next turn, probably.
So that's why ultimately I got a B minus. I like a card like this. Up next. We got Gorbog of minus Morgul. For 1 black, you get a 2/2 Orc Soldier legendary creature. Whenever a goblin or orc you control deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. When you do, choose 1, draw a card, or create a treasure token. Vanilla Test says this is a 2/2 for 2. It's fine. It has upside when you have a clear attack, but you don't really want to sacrifice if you hit, I feel like, most of the time. Like, do you really want to... if something's getting through, there's probably a reason for that. And it's an effective creature you want to keep on the board rather than get a random card. So with all that, it can't be too low with the Vanilla Test, but I have this as a C.
Yeah, I mean, so this is one of those ones that's a little tough for me. I gave it an overall C plus, but I also have a note here that this is almost an absolute bomb in amass decks. Like if you've got an amass deck and you're getting through with your 1/1 amass or something like that, I could definitely see this being really good, right? Like that
the keyword there is if, right? Like how often are you getting through with a 1/1 amass? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I only have it at a C plus. But again, if I was running a lot of amass, or if I was running something that created a fair number of tokens in some way or form, or if I was running with, couple of those Mirkwood bats, right? That give you extra things when you sacrifice a token. I'd be tempted to sacrifice that token because hey, that's 1 life, and now and a card or a treasure token or treasure card token, right? So, I could see it, right? But overall, it doesn't draw me into the color, but I do think it's pretty good. So I'll go with C+.
Sounds good.
All right. So next up, we have March from the Black Gate. It is a 1 colorless, 1 black enchantment. When March from the Black Gate enters the battlefield, and whenever an army you control attacks, amass or swarm. I like this card. I think it is a army generator on a stick, right? Again, I think it is very good. I think I have the same note on this one, that this is also an absolute bomb in amass stacks in my mind. The fact that it's only uncommon, so you could get a couple of these conceivably, depending on how your luck runs in a draft. So I have this one as well as a C+. But again, if I've pulled a lot of amass cards already, if I'm committed to black, this is a high pick for me potentially.
Yeah, this is a strange one in a way. It can grow. It starts kind of small, but not too small because on turn two, you're getting, yes, a 1/1, so it's kind of bad on defense there, but it's immediately the next turn attacking into a 2/2 as a 2/2. So
Yeah.
it doesn't take too long and it can grow from there. Um, I don't know. The thing is, you need to be attacking with your orcs in order to, or your armies in order to get this to grow, and I don't know if that's going to happen all the time. If you're going to want to play your armies defensively some of the time, this doesn't really grow it at that point. So with all that, I think it's a playable, but I have as a C minus. But it'll be an interesting one to judge of like how these decks will play out and how often you'll be attacking as an aggro deck with your army.
Sure. Yeah. No. And I mean, I looked a little into things, and there's a lot of like there are not a lot, because there's not a lot in general, but there's a number of black cards that are like three and a mass, three cost and a mass, right? So the way I looked at it potentially, right, is hey, you play this turn two potentially, you get your 1/1. Next turn, you play something that's three cost that amasses one. You attack. It's now a 3/3 turn three. So I see this not as much on its own, but in an aggro deck, I could see this spiraling with other amassed cards to the point where turn four, turn five, it's a 6/6 or
Yeah.
7/7 army that you've got attacking.
Yeah, you're playing the
And
big army game with this. You're
you're playing
trying to just
the big
pile
army
up your
game,
army and yeah.
yeah,
The issue
and at that point,
the
yeah, go
issue that
ahead.
I have with that is the removal in the set. I mean, I guess it really depends what colors you are. If you're able to bounce something or able to destroy target creature, you just invested so much into that one target.
Sure. Yes.
But if they
Yes. It
don't
is a risk.
have that, if they just have like in red just damage effects, you might be too big and be out of their reach at that point. So
Yeah, no, it's certainly a risky play, right? But that's why I said it's more in an aggro deck that I would see the utility in this because you want to be attacking.
yep.
But yeah, definitely, I think it's we'll see where it lands.
Up next we have Grima Wormtongue, 2 and a black for a 1/4 human advisor legendary creature. Your opponents can't gain life. Tap, sacrifice another creature. Target player loses 1 life. If the sacrificed creature was legendary, amass orcs 2. This is a free sack outlet. There's that. And I think the your opponents can't gain life will come up more often than you think with food. So that's decently nice. I don't like the rest of the stats about this. It's a 1/4 for 3. I'm not a big fan of those. So I had this as a synergy C minus. If you need the sack outlet for some reason, it'll be a playable. Otherwise, I'm not a huge fan. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think I put it a little bit higher. I rated it a C. I think a couple of reasons for this. The opponents can't gain life thing, I think, may well be the reason for that. Look, there's food tokens. Folks might want to gain life with that. This just negates that. I think he's a decent ring bearer with the 1 power because it's going to be hard to kill him in combat, at least with that. It's going to be hard to kill him with a lot of damage spells too. So really, you're left with destroy target creature as a removal option for that. And again, if you've gotten the ring to tempt you a few times, he's going to be hitting for 1, and then also draining them for 3. And oh, by the way, they can't gain life. But again, if you use him for that, then you're not using him for his activated ability, which I think is pretty decent to help speed that life loss and potentially amass more orcs. So he's in an interesting spot. I could see him going up. I could see him going down. But I thought I'd start kind of safe and just put him at a C to begin.
Yeah, these kind of cards are interesting because they blank your opponent's removal. If you have this up, they try to kill something else, you can just sack it and get it. Basically, they have to kill this first. So it has that interesting effect for it. And it's good on defense. So with all that, this is good in a defensive deck for all those purposes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Up next.
Yep. So up next we have Nazgul. And it costs 2 colorless, 1 black for a 1/2 Wraith Knight. It has Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. And whenever the ring tempts you, put a +1/+1 counter on each Wraith you control. So effectively, when he enters the battlefield, he's actually a 2/3 and gets more powerful from there. And a deck can have up to 9 cards named Nazgul. Look, this is a tough one, right? Right. If you've got a lot of ring temps in your deck, this obviously goes up in value. If you're lucky enough to draft 5 of these, I mean, more power to you, man. Play that and have fun, because you're probably going to have a really fun game, especially with that Death Touch. But overall, I think he's effectively a 2/3 for 3 with Death Touch, which I like, and so I gave it overall a C+.
Yeah, the fact that the ring tempts you can grow him even bigger got me up to a B minus. I like a 2/3 Death Touch for 3. That's already above rate ultimately, and the fact that he can grow with all the ring temps, I like this card quite a bit. B minus for me.
Yeah, I'm actually interested to see how this will get played in a potential constructed setting.
Right.
Like, will somebody actually put 9 in a deck and then just like go ham and try and get them all out? And every time a new one comes out, hey, look, they're all getting +1/+1. So yeah, I could see this going in a lot of ways. Or he combos great with Golem, Patient Plotter, right? Because you put Golem out, block with it, let it die, kill something maybe. Oh look, the Nazgul gets stronger and also kills things with Death Touch. So yeah. So you may be talking me up to a B minus here on this one. So yeah, actually, I think I'll go with a B minus as well.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to. The quests that happen on Arena, when I get black at one point and I just need to crank through a quest, I'm gonna buy 9 Nazguls and just build my black deck that way for fun to crank out the reward and see what happens.
Sure, yeah. I mean, why not?
All right. Up next, we have Bitter Downfall. For 3 and a black, you get an instant. This spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a creature that was dealt damage this turn. Destroy target creature. Its controller loses 2 life. So 4 mana, kill anything is good. It's a good card. The fact that its controller loses 2 life too, just add more to the power of it. The fact that you can sometimes pay 1 mana to pull this off as an instant, I think makes this great. I like this card a lot. I got this as a B.
I think I'm a little lower than you. I got this as a B minus. But yes, for all the same reasons you said, it's very good. I like this, in a number of situations, right? Hey, chump block, deal 1 damage to something, and oh look, now it only costs 1, and I'm getting rid of your thing, and by the way, you lose 2 life. Or if your ring bearer gets blocked by something you want, and for some reason the ring bearer doesn't kill it, then oh look, it's dead. So yeah, there's a number of good uses for this. I would obviously not want to pay 4 for it, but I would under a lot of circumstances, because it's good at instant speed. So yeah, I think I'm at a B minus, but I agree, it's very good, and it I think it does draw me into black with this. All right, so next up we have Gothmog, Morgul Lieutenant. For 3 colorless, 1 black. You get a 3/3 legendary creature human soldier, which is odd for black. When it enters the battlefield, amass orcs 1, and creature tokens you control have Death Touch. So this will be an interesting card to see. I have it here as a C+. I like it. It's a 3/3 for 4. Tokens you control have Death Touch. It creates a token when it enters the battlefield, and you have a lot of other ways to do it. But I could see this actually being much better in a black-white deck, right? With, human token generation, you could easily get like 3 or 4 1/1s that all have Death Touch. I think in black alone, though, the odds are your token is going to be your army, and that's probably the only token that you're going to have. And so it's effectively giving 1 other creature Death Touch, which isn't bad, but I'm not sure it quite draws me into black. So yeah, I'm at a C plus on it.
Yep. I think I would. So I gave it a synergy B because of the black white in particular. I think is what where you really want to be playing this, but I would still probably go with a pulls B into black B minus, even if I wasn't doing black white, because it's a decent rate in and of itself. In the essentially 4 power, 4 toughness for 4, and also giving something death touch. So it's not bad on its own, and it just grows from there if you have more creature tokens. So synergy B, leave me at that, but I would go B minus otherwise. I think.
Got it.
Up next, we have Grond the Gatebreaker. For 3 and a black, you get a 5/5 legendary artifact vehicle. It has trample. As long as it's your turn and you control an army, Grond the Gatebreaker is an artifact creature. So it's good when it's a 4 mana 5/5 trampler, right? And it's
Yeah.
bad otherwise. And the problem is too that it's only happens on your turn, so it's not defensive. It's only offensive. I tend to want more for my 4 mana cards, especially vehicles. I'm not a huge vehicle fan, and I like consistency in my decks. So I gave this a C minus. Um, yeah, that kind of sums it up. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have I gave it a C minus as well. Although I kind of have the idea of like a synergy C plus, right? Like, I mean, which is kind of weird because if you're playing black, you're probably going to have a fair amount of mass. So, so I think I'll stick with my C minus. Crew 3 is a high cost. Crew 2 is a lot better. Just because, hey, you're going to be able to use it a lot more. But yeah, I like the trample. I like that it's a 5/5. If you're playing in an aggro setting and you've got an army out, great. This is going to help your beat down even more. But it's almost in a lot of ways win more for me, right? Like if you're in an aggro setting and you've got an army out, like you're either doing well or you're not. And if you're not doing well, this doesn't particularly help you because it's not a great defensive tool, like you said. So yeah, I'm going to go with a C minus as well on this one. All right. So next we have Oath of the Grey Host. And so this is, I think, our first saga.
Yep.
And it is a 3 colorless, 1 black enchantment saga. As it comes into play, you and target opponent each create a food token. On following your second upkeep, you get each opponent loses 3 life, create a treasure token. And following on the third upkeep, when you sacrifice it, you create 3 tapped 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. So overall, I think this is a little expensive for a saga. I don't like paying 4 for my sagas. There are some good 4-cost sagas, but they're, in other sets, for example, I forget the name of it. I think it's like Boseiji Touches the Sky or something like that. It's a green saga that allows you to search immediately when it comes into play. You search for 2 forests, and then next turn, I forget what happens on the second turn. Oh, you can put a forest or a land card from your graveyard on top of your deck, and then on the third one, it becomes a creature with power and toughness equal to your lands, with reach. And so that I like in a 4-cost saga. This one I think is a little expensive, especially for its, you and your opponent each get a food token originally. That's not even a huge benefit because your opponent's getting the same thing. So I have this as a D plus.
You may have noticed we have a change of location for Matt and a change of costume for both of us. It's a different day. We stopped recording mid episode last time because my microphone went out. So we just have a couple more cards to cover in the Black and Commons. So last we stopped, we went over Oath of the Grey Host, and Matt gave his comment. I'm just going to respond and say I have this card as a Synergy D+. You get some good things by Chapter 3, but it's too slow, and I think this card is a trap.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we're kind of on the same page there. I also gave it a D+. And, I don't know if I would call it synergy. I mean, I can see playing it, and I can see picking it in some circumstances. Certainly, I think it's better in others, but yeah, I think we're roughly on the same page with that.
Yep. Up next, we have Voracious Fellbeast. For 4 colorless and 2 black, you get a 4/4 Drake Beast creature with flying. When Voracious Fellbeast enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Create a food token for each creature sacrificed this way. This is your 6 mana 4/4 flyer again. That's typically not that great in limited. They did attach an edict to it. Edicts usually aren't that great in limited, but it does bump up the card to make it better than the standard 4/4 flyer. And it makes a food token. There's some synergies there. It's a little bit of upside. So I have this as a C-. What do you think?
Yeah, I put it a little bit lower. I put it at a D because I just think overall it's a little too expensive for what it is, and sure, it may win you games, right? And so I think it's to my mind more of a filler though. Usually I would want my 6 drops, my bombs, basically my late game plays to be a little bit more powerful than a 4/4. That said, it is a flyer, obviously, so it can, cruise over most of it. There's not a whole lot of flyers in the set. Yeah. There are a few other creatures with reach. The food token is fine, but I'm not sure it does enough for me to bring it up into that C tier. So I'm going to go with a D overall.
Yeah, that's fair. I really think this is only a playable when you need it. If you need some top end, yes. This is your emergency top end. So I can definitely see the D range approach here. I guess that's really what I'm saying is if I pick all my other cards higher and I'm without top end, I think this is a low end playable in that case.
Sure. Yeah. No. If I'm late in the second pack or mid third pack, somewhere in that range, and I still haven't found my finisher, and this is still in the pack, yeah, I'd gladly take it. But there's probably a number of cards I'd prefer over it.
For sure.
So yeah, I think we're on the same page there.
All right. Let's move on then to our red commons.
All right. That covers the black commons and uncommons in the set. We'll be having similar videos coming up now for each of the other colors, and then we'll do the rares and mythic rares to sort of round everything out at the end. Obviously, this is only our second video, but if you like it, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. We appreciate it, and we're looking forward to seeing you in the next one.
See you in the next one.